Obviously, I run MMT Tech Meet-up. My name's Ilesh Mistry. I'm a CMS specialist and a content MVP. You can get my contact details here. And a quick thing about sort of like the company that I work for, which is MMT Digital. One of the big things that we do is obviously making sure that we can help our clients build digital products that transform their business performance. And if you need to contact them, there's a QR code for them as well. A little bit of a plug, which is really to kind of say that we are looking and we are recruiting. So if you're interested, there's some roles there, and there's many more roles as well. You can just check out the website. But back to the meetup side of things. So the MMT Tech meetups are more front-end driven topics. And if you have any ideas of future ones or want to be involved, or just even have like recommended speakers as well, just get in touch with me, and then we can kind of sort something out. Yeah, that's the MMT Tech meetups. So before we get started, just a quick few things is really to just make sure you just drop your questions in the chat, and most likely you'll get a session at the end of each presentation to kind of ask questions as well. We'll be recording these sessions as well, so we can, if you have to leave at any point, then that's not a problem, and we'll share it later on once we can actually export the video out. And if you can, it would be really good if you can share anything that you've noticed here or want to promote, really using the hashtag and any handles that you'll see in the presentations.
Just hit that. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. So today's sessions are basically going to be covering a few things on mental health and well-being. And in particular, like there's going to be a couple of things where, especially the presentations that we've got listed there, one's going to be more going to be focusing on our experiences when we have actually delivered a website before Christmas, and some of the things we actually had to go through as a team. And then Charlotte's going to be talking about well-being at work and some of the things that you should be considering there. And Beata is going to be covering mental health hygiene for practitioners. So it's very much sort of like, helping the people here. And that's very important, and very important topics, as I've already mentioned as well. So I'm going to get started with the first presentation. So just going to swap around my presentations. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about some of the experiences I've had from launching a website before Christmas, and some of the things that we had to kind of cover, etc. on there. So obviously, if you've joined a little bit late, my name is Ilesh Mistry. I'm a CMS specialist and a content MVP. And you can get contact with me via the QR code on the right. The bits I'll be covering is just have a general introduction on the bits that we're trying to show on the presentation. Some of the things that we had to kind of deal with when it came to the website requirements, and the thought processes we had to kind of go through. And then a strategy sort of like on how we should approach this scenario, because obviously it was quite a sort of high pressure, short time frame sort of delivery. And I'm going to not be too technical, but there will be a couple of sort of slides on the technical aspects of what we chose and why we chose it during the development approach, and then go through some final thoughts on sort of like how we actually felt as well when we were delivering the project. So basically, the introduction side of things is more on, I got this pretty much from looking at the Mental Health Foundation site. And I was kind of surprised myself when I was reading this kind of information, because I'm not really a big expert in that area, but it really alerted me to some some big things out there, and we need to sort of like look after everyone, etc. as well. So basically, mental health problems are one of the main causes of overall disease burden worldwide, which I was very surprised about. Mental health and behavior problems, which can, be anything from drug use to depression or anxiety to anything more than that as well. They kind of sort of like push towards the disability worldwide, like they drive that. And it seems like, there's a lot of sort of like age gap in the sense of 20 to 29-year-olds. It's causing, like, it feels like 40 million years of disability and to those kind of age range, which is, to me, quite an eye-opening kind of scenario. And then basically, like, the depression side of things, it's like it's hard to kind of tell with people as well. Like, you can't see that, it's not obvious. It's one of those ones that, can lead to sort of like other sort of diseases like heart, or even potentially people committing suicide. And it's basically estimated that 1 in 6 people in the past week experience a common mental health problem, which, especially with this sort of like January month and Blue Monday and lots of things going on in this particular month, it's a high sort of percentage there. And if you want to find out more, then by all means check out that website, because it's got a lot of information. Like, I think I saw a PDF on there that had like over 100 pages worth of very sort of like important stats about mental health. And another thing, obviously, I found, which I was really surprised about as well, was we all have mental health, but not all of us live with good mental health, which I was surprised to hear. So it's how you kind of handle everything. So how you can make use of all of your abilities, and how you cope with work, family life. It's the circumstances you actually put in. And if you find it difficult and don't talk about it, and that's, I think, basically how it becomes to sort of like evolve further and further. And having somebody, or being in that situation, and if they start talking more about it, and that would probably help and prevent a lot of the things happening to them. And obviously having good well-being will also help towards that as well. So like I mentioned, I'm not a mental health expert or well-being expert. Hopefully the two people after me will be a lot better than myself. But I wanted to share some experiences I went through with getting a website live with the team that I was in. And most of these are going to be more of my personal sort of experiences. So, that would be quite good to hear. Also, I feel like, everyone's going to have different roles in a business, whether that's a developer, whether that's a project manager, whether that's a person in HR, and everyone will have different deadlines and different circumstances to kind of deal with. So it's going to be important to kind of understand that people put into those different situations will have to handle those differently, and will obviously deal with them differently depending on how they have personal situations and other sort of factors that would be behind the doors as well. After sort of like each sort of stage of section I'll be covering, I'll just probably be talking about how we actually felt individually and as a team. And as you can imagine, like, even though we've got basically, Blue Monday, and January's tend to be like a really like bad month when it comes to like mental health and well-being, adding COVID-19 into this, and homeschooling and childcare, and like personally for me, I've got like a 5-year-old and an 11-month baby, and both of them need their attentions either way. Like, and trying to manage work life is very tricky. So I'll be putting hopefully those bits in there as well. And obviously there's a little bit of warning that there are a lot of GIFs on this presentation, so I apologize for that. Okay, so when it came to like the website requirements, we initially were just presented with this. We want a website launch before Christmas. And we literally had like I would say probably less than 2 weeks to deliver it. And imagine we kind of deal with like bigger clients, and they want a lot from what they want before, you know, anything gets released. So it was quite a high pressure sort of like requirement at the start when we were spoken to initially. We had like a fixed deadline. Obviously it had to be before Christmas. There was no designs, like we couldn't see anything visual to say, okay, how's this going to get built? It was just all from like a Microsoft Word document. So we're basically starting from a blank canvas. The client kind of, it was indicated that basically it would be better if it's something that they could content manage. So, you know, they could take that site away and actually manage the content themselves. Accessibility was a big factor because they needed to make sure that it was AA compliant, which obviously we need to make sure that even though we're dealing with mental health, accessibility is a big requirement on that, is to make sure one website for all, basically, and to make sure that's delivered. And it was like it was a recommendation from an existing client. So you got the added pressure there that someone else has actually recommended, and we need to either, you know, decide whether we go for this website or we say we don't. So our pressures were there, like we needed to start ASAP. And we had to make sure that, you know, initially, like it was a case of, hold on, website before Christmas, how are we going to do all of this kind of stuff? So what we did was we initially had a catch up. We spoke about the deadline. Then we talked about the budget. We spoke about the deadline again. Then we talked about no designs. And then we also spoke about the deadline again, because the deadline was like literally the thing that was, you know, we deliver websites all the time, but actually the deadline that we had to kind of deliver on was really, really tight. So then we thought, okay, like, all right, so we need to make sure that we have to really try and plan this out a bit and think about how we're going to, you know, go through this. So we thought about this and we thought, okay, you know, Christmas is generally a quiet period where people wind down. There's no designs, but then how can we sort of like make it sort of, you know, workable? Are we going to get it all done? And who do we need for this? So like the resource that's available, because people are going to have like holiday time off. And what's the priority, etc. And any additional cost, because obviously delivering a website is one thing, but there's additional cost potentially with subscriptions or anything like that as well. And for us, like a big thing at MMT Digital is we tend to have like a delivery phase. And the delivery phase is massive because that tells us exactly what we should be like looking into, the architecture and those kind of aspects of you know, delivering a website. So we didn't have any of this. So literally we were on our own. So we felt like from our initial sort of like hearing about we need to get this website live, is that this hard deadline which can't be shifted. So we were a bit nervous about this, like, you know, our confidence levels, knowing that we can deliver something in say a couple of months or whatever, we would know we can plan that out a bit more. It was a stressful situation for us to be in. Not saying that we haven't dealt with like this kind of situation before, but this was extremely high pressure because they were reliant on, especially it being, you know, the UK coming out of Brexit, with Brexit going on, that site needed to go live before Christmas because no one's going to be working during Christmas. And as soon as we arrive on 1st of January, that site should be live basically. So there was some big sort of like pressure on this. And when we actually did some initial estimates, we actually were going over the deadline. So we had to kind of consider like people's personas there and thinking, okay, like what about overtime? Do we need to kind of consider those kind of things? And like we did actually seriously think, should we decline that project as well? And it's a big thing there where you'd rather be honest to a client and say that we weren't going to achieve it. But what we did was we basically thought down and thought, okay, like, you know, we should be able to deliver something good to the client, and I can only do that by helping each other to deliver this. So we basically assembled ourselves to do that. So our strategy we looked at was in particular agile, and we went super lean with the delivery. So we felt that, okay, if we deliver something and once it's delivered to a level, we can iterate upon it to make it better. We also went for like a super lean with our user stories and agile practices. So we kept everything pretty much lightweight, so we didn't burn enough, the time where we could actually be developing this website. Stand-ups we kept because obviously the client could see progress, and it also allowed us to kind of resolve any blockers, and it was obviously essential for the group. But what we kind of really made sure for our morale and to support each other was to make sure we had an internal regroup as and when needed. So our architecture wasn't there, and we needed something ASAP, really. So we basically ended up, looking at sort of like some of the designs and thinking, okay, like what do we focus on first? Let's go for like the quickest thing first, or the most important thing, which is like the header and footer. We also realized that we needed to probably look at some licenses that needed to be purchased because they could be blockers for the development team. And we also looked at the fact that we could deliver maybe a static site, which would then not fall in one of the remits, which was to make something content managed. So, but if we did that, then would it cost us more to kind of make it content managed later on? So we kind of thought about those things as well. We kept up our communications, and then obviously we had to kind of think about a development approach as well. So how are we feeling after we kind of like, went through our strategy? The approach kind of allowed us to get more confident. The team we had established was all in it together. The development and architecture approach, we kind of, helped with the team and advise them what we want to try and go for. And then we also kind of looked at the design strategy, and we know what we're going to try and look for and trying to build that website out. And obviously the regrouping also helped. So our development approach itself, we kind of had to look at, where we're going to store the code that we actually going to be developing. We need to look at a quick static site approach. Accessibility, we can't forget about that. And if we go for content manageable, then what sort of providers can we use? What platforms can we use for that? And then hosting and architecture side of things, we need something quick. So we went for this architectural approach. So our architectural approach here is that we've got a CMS, which we'll talk about in a bit more detail in a bit. But Kentico content, which will be there, which will be our CMS, headless CMS that's feeding into a static site generator called Gatsby. And our repository is held in GitHub, and then we'll be using something called Netlify. So let me move on to the individual items. So we chose a static site generator, and it was basically called Gatsby.js, and it's very popular out there, and it's one of the key players when it comes to kind of generating these websites. It's a React-based open source framework, and it's got performance, scalability, and security built in, which obviously is handy for us because we don't have to do these extra bits that we needed in there. It also has something that allows us to retrieve the data through query language called GraphQL. And we find like this is like awesome for like great for small sites when you want to have like a quick turnaround. But we've also learned as well within the company that you can use it for larger websites, and we have done. So it's kind of like a no-brainer for us that we had to choose something like this to help us get started. The added benefit for us on this is that it helped that we had team members who had experience using it. So we know how easy it was to set up. And it also had the benefits of actually having SEO and accessibility plugins that we could bolt into it, which would then tick those other boxes that we wanted in sense of the website requirements. So this all helped. But what we needed to do was make sure that Gatsby worked with a headless CMS. And we actually looked at a few options, and we looked at digital experience platforms, the all-in-one solution where you get everything in there, in the sense of like e-commerce, online marketing. But we basically thought like, is it something that we can kind of look at, which is like a headless CMS, which is just literally all you focus on is entering content. And that's all we want the client to do, is just enter content and that's it. And we went for Kentico content. And that headless CMS offers easy to use content management tools for marketers. It obviously frees up the developers to focus on building the online experiences. So all the content editor or the website maintainer needs to do is just put in the content. That's all they need to worry about. And everything else is taken care of by the development team. So when it comes to those Kentico content, the thing is that there is a subscription cost involved. And luckily we spoke to the friendly sales team who were really like helpful to get us through the process of this subscription purchase very quickly, because obviously we were on the tight deadlines, and any sort of like week or 2 week turnaround was not good enough for us. So we literally just got involved, and they were really helpful for us. The added bonus of obviously having a headless CMS is that there's no installations required. You don't need to worry about that kind of thing. It's lightweight, and obviously, like I mentioned earlier, it's perfect for content changing. And one of the added bonuses, obviously, like I mentioned at the start, was that I am a content MVP, but we've got plenty of experience with working with Kentico content. So it just felt like that was the right solution for us. There is a little bit on the side that if you ever wanted to get into Kentico content, there's a 90-day free trial. But with Kentico content, we basically thought, okay, how are we going to put this somewhere? How are people going to look at this and view the website itself? And we could look at like other scenarios where we could use something like Amazon Web Services or Azure, but we needed something quick. Like we don't have resource in-house at that point in time to say, okay, we need like someone to set this up for us and get it all working with the systems and DevOps teams. So we basically chose Netlify, and that is actually really worked perfectly for us because it's a powerful serverless platform with Git-based workflow, and the deployments worked really well, and the preview side of things was really good as well. Again, unfortunately, there's a subscription cost, so it's like another thing to kind of go through. But what we did was obviously, again, we were really like proactive on this and spoke to the sales team and said like, we can't, and wait around too much. And the good thing about some of these subscription services is that it's really just a credit card, that's all you need. And you can start like, start using their system, which is really handy. And like I mentioned, we had no time resource for the systems team and DevOps team, really. We had like a member around just to help us if we needed to, but a lot of this is taking people out of their comfort zone, doing something that they don't normally do. And we managed to kind of get the people on board for that as well. And our repository was helped with GitHub, which is something that's available for lots of open source people out there. And it's easy to set up. But I'm talking about all of these things, but one of the things that allowed us to really felt confidence about this is the fact that we've had personal experiences about this, and we were confident of like delivering this scenario with this set of tools. We had developers who may not have worked on this, but were really excited, because if you imagine, you say to a developer, you need to kind of deliver something by a deadline, but actually the technology that they're working on is not exciting for them, they'll probably be less sort of like enthusiastic to kind of work on it. Whereas these developers, you can see it in their eyes that, even virtually, but you can see in their eyes that they really wanted to kind of work on this project. And the technology stack was awesome for like front-end developers, which is a importance for them as well. And the key thing of those individual products, they work collectively very well together. It was seamless integration. There was no like problems of how do I connect one to the other. Everything was working like perfectly together, and that kind of increased our confidence a lot more, knowing that that can be possible. And with obviously Gatsby and Kentico content, we know that there was a source plugin around for a long time. There's been lots of revisions on it, and there's a starter site, so that all helped us to get started. So we're already in advanced stages after like a couple of days of actually working on this project. And this stack and way of working has been around a couple of years, so it made us really sort of like confident, feeling that we're going to be able to hopefully deliver this website on time and on budget. So that's kind of like it really from my side. Like, did we hit the deadline? Yes, we did, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here. So that's like one of the big things for us, that we did hit the deadline, and hopefully we are going to kind of add more revisions to it and iterations this year as well. But final thoughts from this is that, you know, when it comes to accessibility, don't leave it to the end. You know, and it, luckily for us, we didn't do that, and otherwise you'd be panicking at the end, and that's another added pressure and situation that you don't want to be in. We felt like, especially on this project, teamwork, you know, understanding each other and trusting the team as well. And it's not just trusting them on the development process, it's also trusting them and supporting them emotionally as well. We felt that was a really good, important factor that we kind of learned. The clients actually, even though they wanted a website by a certain time, they did understand from the standards, and they understood that we can try and go lean with things. And that kind of took a little bit of pressure off us, and but it also helped as well. The flexibility of the approach and working agile allowed us to get to the market faster, which is also important. And experience within the team also helped. And blockers were like we were resolving from our internal catch-ups and stand-ups. To be honest, like I can personally say work-life balance was affected because like we were working flexible hours and potential overtime and deadlines looming. It was tough, but you know, one of the things that the development team loved is working on the project, and that's what kept them going. The pressure obviously adds more when you're on a lockdown environment as well, which we all can kind of agree on. And we always found that if we wanted to talk to anyone, we could. There were team members, HR team, family members as well. I personally found a way to take my mind off the pressure by spending time with my family. Homeschooling also has deadlines, so that's another thing to kind of consider about, but it's a break from work. I also know that I could reach out to the mental health website, which I did actually, and obviously you could see from the few tips that I saw from there. Exercising and fresh air also helps to kind of clear your mind to deliver this project. And final really point on this is that it's important to talk to one another really and not deal with these deadlines and pressures on your own. And I think without that team, I think we would have struggled big time, but I'm glad we had the team around us. That's it from me. Thank you for listening to my presentation. If you've got any questions, please let me know and before we move on to the next presenters. Okay, no worries if we've got no questions. By all means, drop them in the chat if needed. Next up, we've got Charlotte. And Charlotte, are you okay to present? You might be on mute.
I am on mute. Thank you for that one, Ilesh. That was a great start, wasn't it? So I'm just going to share my screen. Perfect. Can you all see my screen okay? I'll take that as a...
we can't see your screen.
Oh no, Ilesh. I told you this. I told you this would happen, guys. 1 moment.
Can you try now?
Can you see now?
Yes, yeah.
I'm just going to put it in presenter mode. Oh no. Can you see this one okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, guys. Right, that's not a great start, is it? Right, okay. So, hi, guys. For those of you who don't know me, so I am Charlotte Murdin, the HR manager at MMT Digital. Some of you might have met me, and for others, I joined the company in November. So very new to the company. As mentioned here, I'm certainly not an expert. a HR professional with a passion for engagement and well-being. So I love everything well-being engagement. It's sort of at the heart of everything that we do, definitely at MMT, and I know for the future it's something that my team are focusing on. Within this presentation, I'll just be sharing with you some of our best practices. A bit similar to what Ilesh says, I'm not an expert, this is facts off the website. However, I'm just going to share with you the approach from MMT and how we're doing things, and just sort of points around the current climate. We're all in lockdown. I mean, right now we're doing a tech meetup at 6:30 on a Zoom call. So a lot has changed, and I think that's really mindful to be, of when we're talking about well-being and sort of how we fit it into the workplace. So why is well-being at work important? So when we talk about well-being, I think it's really clear that it started right back sort of in the 1970s around Health and Safety Act, and it's really come on in milestones, obviously since those early days. So it's around the duty of care of our employees. There's obviously a piece of law in there around making sure we've got risk assessments and it's a health and safety is in place. However, there's definitely been a shift. I think if you go in any news at the minute and any articles, particularly in the HR profession, it's all around how we can make well-being a priority in the workplace and what we can do to make changes. In 2018, sickness absence cost the UK over £18 billion a year. So that's definitely one to share with the CEO around the absence and the importance of well-being. So it's just a point there that is to be mindful about what sickness absence cost us, and there's some really simple things that we can do to obviously encourage employees to feel happier and safer in their workplace. So investing in well-being leads to decreased absence, greater innovation and higher productivity. Strangely, since working from home, you'll probably see there's a lot of stats, and I'll come into it later, about productivity's increased massively. But I think it's a consideration that is probably increased because, if we're all honest, we're probably working a lot longer hours than what we would be if we're in the office. So I think, like anything, when looking at well-being, particularly in a lockdown situation, you've got to be mindful of the other factors that have come into play around that. And promoting employee well-being is now at the heart of most companies, and I think it really aligns to that whole engagement strategy piece together. So the key fundamentals of workplace well-being. So we've got mental health. So obviously this is around your thoughts and your feelings. So a lot of people obviously suffer from mental health throughout their work life, and sometimes it comes into work, but I think sometimes it stays very separate to that, and I think it's a very personal thing. There is obviously discrimination law now that protects people where they have mental health considered as a disability. So there is a lot more information now, I think, for employers around how to handle it, but I still think there's a lot of work that we can do around mental health, the stigma of it, and how we look at it from a workplace. Physical well-being, so obviously that's all about our lifestyle, our exercise, our eating habits, and also with COVID-19, I think it's brought it right back to basics. So health, are our people well? Are they ill? And sort of protecting them from the COVID virus. It's almost taking it right back again to the basics of health and safety. So social well-being, so this is all around the relationships we build. It's a really important part of a company, and probably a lot of it we do it without even realizing, because I think it forms a part of our strategy and engagement. But technically, if somebody builds good relationships, it's going to have a massive improvement on their well-being and the way they feel towards their workplace. And then financial well-being. So according to a recent study, apparently 1 in 4 people suffer from a financial burden. 1 in 10 of those reckon that it affects the way they do their work and has an effect towards their concentration. So I think financial well-being is probably a new one around the workplace well-being, and it's definitely something that I think is going to be coming more of the agenda and a focus on for companies to provide resource and materials for. So what do the stats say? So very similar. So 12.7% of all sickness absence in the UK can be attributed to mental health conditions. particularly around suffering burnout. So 63% are more likely to be absent and more likely to be actively looking for a role. And 1 in 4 people experience problems with sadness, stress, or anxiety. And in line with the whole mind organisation, it's around every mind matters and you're not alone, which I think is something for a company to look at when they're thinking about mental health. So I just wanted to pop this slide on because I think this is really important, particularly to talk about mental health in the workplace. And I think from talking about MMT Digital, we are a very male-oriented company. You know, we all know that our diversity is particularly strong on the males. So we do need to be mindful of stigmas around mental health. So 1 in 8 men have a common mental health problem. Men report lower levels of life satisfaction than women, according to recent studies. 3 times as many men as women die by suicide, and men aged 40 to 49 have the highest suicide rate. So I think in a HR professional and in any work, you have to start looking at, you know, where does the stigma come from? So in society, I think as a whole, men are known to be that more strong, resilient species. And I think it's come from obviously many years now. And I think although that ginger change in society, we are informing that men can show their emotions. I think we have to be realistic that men and women handle their emotions very differently, and those characteristics aren't wrong. You know, there's nothing wrong with being strong, resilient, but I think we need to be very mindful that men will handle their emotions differently, and therefore we need to look at a different approach as to how we approach the subject around mental health and well-being with men. So how does HR and the workplace battle this? For a HR professional like myself, it's just around, it's nothing different, I don't think, to our other wellbeing practices, but it's just about being mindful of the stigma around men, the fact that men may struggle to come forward a bit more. And actually it might need more of that one-to-one approach. There's different signs to look out for, and I think I'm not professional, but there's advice on looking out for signs of distress and in well-being and people's appearances. So I think as a HR professional, it's just being mindful of looking out for those characteristics and then addressing the problem and sort of approaching it in a different way. Is this going to be solved overnight? I don't think so, but I certainly think it's something that workplaces are working towards. We obviously have Movember, which is a massive campaign you all know about. And I think slowly, as socially we talk and accept more about male mental health, then slowly the stigma will start to go. And I think it'll become more of a common ground and something that workplaces will sort of talk about without having to mention the word stigma. Because I think once you do that, then you're at the place where it's acceptable. So what can we do in the workplace for well-being? Again, it's really broad and really different depending on what organisation you are, but I think there's some key things. So initiative wise, I think sharing resources, doing what we're doing now. So Ilesh is a fantastic example of a company and talking about mental health and well-being, and I think this is one of those things where if we can share and get talking, the more knowledge we provide to employees, the better chance we have of obviously improving that well-being. Initiatives, so for MMT we obviously do a lot of initiatives around 5 days 5 ways and encouraging our employees to try and get involved in those, to take time out and think about mental health and your well-being, and also educating you around those points. Engagement, so I think wellbeing and engagement works hand in hand really. If you've got a happy workforce, you're going to feel better in your well-being, and it's going to make you feel more positive and have a more positive lifestyle. We obviously need to have manager and colleague support. So for this one, line manager tools are a key thing. You need to educate your managers, I think, on how to handle well-being particularly. And I'm really conscious that it's a very difficult subject, and I think some people might be afraid to approach it, or if they had a mental health situation, not know how to handle it. And that's where obviously we have our HR team and MMT that can support people, but there's loads on the website like Ilesh mentioned. So there's mental health organisation, there's the Mind organisation, there's the NHS. So I think it's a really vital tool that managers know how to handle well-being. And then as a point of colleagues, so I think we have a bit of responsibility to check in on each other, particularly in this current environment. So I think if we can have a culture where we're okay to see how each of us doing and talk openly, that in itself will help to drive and improve well-being. EAP and counselling service, so a lot of you may have heard of this. So they're free services that companies can provide, and they're professionals that are trained in everything from financial, counselling, mortgage advice, and they're there for the employees to contact confidentially, so none of that information is shared, to obviously get advice or information on what they can do. And then fitness programs and resources. So I think over probably the last couple of years, there's been a bit of a trend around wellbeing programs. People bring initiatives into the company. I think there's like online meditations and yoga classes now since lockdown. People getting fitness coaches in. And then there's the whole, I think when you're talking fitness program resources, sometimes, and even I do this, I'm like, oh, I don't want to exercise. I'm not in the mind frame. I've got kids, homeschooling and work life. Where can I find that balance? So I think it's really important in the workplace that you cater for everybody. So I think sharing the resources, having a fitness program, but also being mindful that some people just might want to have a safe environment and somebody to talk to and then go home after their day. So the really important message, I think, is having a workplace wellbeing initiative that suits you and your company. So, wellbeing in lockdown. We're here again. I bet we all didn't think that we'd be here again. So we are lockdown 3.0, and we've all been forced to change our ways. So for me, I've not met any of my team yet in person. I've not been into the office. I've been into the Uppingham office once. That's a lie, guys. But you know, I've not been to the office. I've met most of you via Zoom or Teams. We've got home life coming into our personal life. We've got changing restrictions, which are very confusing. I'm not going to get into that debate today, but it's really confusing at, you know, what we can and can't do. It's had a really huge impact to our mental and physical health. And I think it's, and you don't, I've got to share experiences, but I'm not expecting that today. But I do think it's worth sometimes, you know, having 2 minutes to think about how you feel in working in lockdown. Why do you feel this way, and what can you do? So for me, my experience, I've obviously joined a company straight virtually. I've got an 18-month-old and a 6-year-old. My husband's self-employed, so you know, all the pressures that I'm sure everybody are you dealing with and how to manage that and settle in. And it's a bit of a way for me. So I'm a very positive, bubbly person. I like to be around people and I like to have control of what's happening. And for me personally, being in this environment is a bit of a, oh, it's out of my control, what can I do? But by talking about that, and I think also accepting that it's okay sometimes that I can't change it, really helps you. And I think it's something we can all do with taking away, just to have 5 minutes a day to think about how we're feeling and why. So, well-being whilst working at home. So a staggering 49% of remote workers note that their biggest struggle was wellness related. 19% say that they don't switch off when they need to. 8% feel less motivated and more lonely. I think we can all agree that we definitely work more, and it's definitely a struggle to switch off when you're in the same room as your laptop to pop it on. And I think the company's changed. So a lot of companies didn't do agile working before, and I think lockdown forced that, which is a really positive thing, especially for well-being. But I think we all have to be mindful of that work-life balance and how we manage that. And for us all, I can't sit and educate on what's best. I think we all have to think about what works for us, obviously with the company and our current work deadlines, but also in our personal life, and when's the best time to dip in and out and take our breaks. So these figures are only expected to surge with the following corona pandemic, with more people working from home. I think we have to be honest that we all aren't as mentally healthy as what we were when we first came into this lockdown. So I think we need to be mindful that whilst we carry on working at home, we all have to consciously think about our well-being and make a conscious effort as to how at work we balance that and make it best for us all. So tips for staying well in lockdown. disclaimer, you don't have to follow these, and this is just advice that I've researched, so take this with a pinch of salt, but it's just some top tips to share. So follow a routine. So control is out of your hands, but it's really important to give your day structure. Like Ilesh said, he took regular breaks, went for a walk. So myself, as the fact I moan about having Freddie, my 6-year-old, at home, actually he has to be fed, as all 6-year-old boys want. So what it does is forces me to take that lunch break and take some time away from the day to sort of make sure I take my eyes off the work. Eat well and try to prepare meals. So I think particularly where you've got a back-to-back day, you might have homeschooling or visitors or DPD delivery drivers knocking at the door. It's really important to plan ahead so you've got healthy regular meals ready to go, so you're eating regularly. Keep hydrated, so 6 to 8 glasses per day as recommended by the NHS. Avoid excess, keep bad habits for the short term. So I'm sure the alcohol and chocolate increase, especially in the HR team, has increased dramatically during lockdown and homeschooling. And I think it's fine, if that makes us happy and gets us through what we need to at this time, that's all good. But I think it's just to be mindful that we can't let these short-term habits turn into long-term habits, because in the long run, they're just going to make you feel mentally unhealthy. Take time to switch off. So go outside, take 5 minutes to notice 5 different things. So this is a really good tool. I think sometimes going for a walk is great, but you're also probably walking around for 5 minutes thinking about work and coming straight back and log back onto your laptop. So taking 5 minutes to notice 5 different things connects to your senses. It gets your mind to switch off and gets you really focusing on those 5 things, so you're actually taking time to de-stress and calm. Maintain relationships. So use your work colleagues to talk and have a chat. This is definitely something I miss about lockdown. So I love, in the office, you pop in the kitchen, make yourself a cuppa and talk to somebody about what TV program you watched or other things. And I think during lockdown, it is really important that we try to, where possible. So at MMT, we've got various communication channels, and I'm sure some other companies have, but it's really important to have a chat and use that time, and don't talk about work all the time. I know I've got work to do, but it's really important to have some personal time to talk about what's going on and how you're feeling. And then be kind. So be patient with loved ones and yourself. It's a difficult time. Work pressures are really high, I understand that, but I think we all need to be mindful. We're all struggling, and just where possible, be kind to each other. So what's next for wellbeing at work? So there's lots of trends as always, and in the HR division, we're always looking at sort of what's new, what's coming. And again, it doesn't mean it's right for you and right for your company. It might be that it isn't suitable, so it's about analysing it. So tailored health portals. So there's an Irish company that has experimented this since the pandemic. So in theory, it's like a portal to doctors and practitioners where they'll give you online medical advice. Slightly dubious on that one. I'm not sure it's something we will be bringing in, but it's just to show you how wellbeing's changed. And I think the mindset, particularly around certain companies since COVID-19, is actually the healthcare of our employees and what can we do to make sure our employees are more healthy. So digital detoxing. So apparently we spend 2 hours and 38 minutes a day on our smartphones. This is definitely me, hands up. So it's all around taking some time out of everything digital. I know it's really hard because we are, for MMT, a digital company, but it's about taking that time out of everything digital and just recharging yourself and getting into the real life. So going outdoors and seeing life for what it is rather than through digital eyes. So holistic well-being. So obviously this is looking at the well-being, and it's everything included. So it's your mental well-being, your physical well-being, your social well-being, but also looking at the spiritual side. And a lot of programs that company have rolled out have gone with the status that if one of those things aren't quite right, then all of you needs fixing. So if you have something around your physical or your health, then actually the company will look at that, even though maybe your mental well-being is fine and your financial well-being is fine. So it's looking at it as a holistic well-being approach. Social enrichment programs. So I think this is something that's going to come out of lockdown. So relationship building, like I mentioned, is really important. And I think what's very obvious, like these calls we're on now, this is probably the most social thing that all of us are going to be doing this week. So it's about looking at social enrichment programs. What can we bring in as a company to sort of get those relationship building doing and have a conversation socially? So financial employee wellness resources, I've already spoken about this. At MMT, we have a lot of resources available, and if anybody wants me to share them, please let me know. But it's certainly something we have to be mindful of in COVID-19. Unfortunately, there's a lot of furlough. We don't know what the situation looks like coming out of lockdown. So I think we have to be mindful that there is now a financial burden on some people. I think, like mental health stigma, financial well-being is also got a stigma that I don't think we like to talk about on many problems, as it showed in the study. So I think as a company, we need to be mindful and just probably looking towards that for the future. And then I've got here health and safety. So lockdown is finishing. We've got a vaccine or 4 vaccines on the way. You know, we don't know what this virus is going to do. And I think we need to be mindful and take it back to the basics of our priority at the minute is that we have healthy staff and obviously protecting them where we can, ready for return to work or return to offices, whenever that may be. And I felt like I flew through that, sorry guys, but has anybody got any questions? I think the chat's got a couple in.
That was really helpful. There was some really good stuff in there.
Oh, thank you.
It was the thing about like noticing 5 things when you go for a walk, because at the moment that's all we can do, right? Just going for walks, but I feel like it's very repetitive.
Yes.
So it's quite a good idea to like try and notice 5 different things.
Yeah, good, glad. And I think it's sometimes simple stuff like that. And I'll put my hands up and say, in HR, I think because we read about it and do it every day, we sometimes think well-being has to be really complicated, same as engagement, whereas actually what me and the team try and say regularly is let's take it right back to basics, because right now I think basics is the most important thing, right? Just to make sure that we're getting that, like you say, gap in our everyday life and just focusing on making sure we're well.
Definitely. And the burnout thing is really interesting as well, because I think that is a key thing that can happen during lockdown, because I know like all of our team are just, everyone's working really hard, so it's like burnout I think is a lot more likely in like the next 6 months than maybe it was a year ago.
Yeah, completely agree. It's becoming a really common theme across lots of companies, and I think for us in HR, we're now looking at how can we handle that, but also you've got the complications of, you know, we have to go on with work because MMT is performing really well, right? And we've got that fine balance between profits but also looking after our staff, and how we manage that. So yeah, I wouldn't like to say it's a challenge because I think we've got the right thing set up for it, but I think it's just people being aware of it. And I think as managers, like I mentioned before, it's really important to be mindful of what's happening. And I think taking that time sometimes to think, are my team burning out or are they okay?
Yeah, I think in my company, it's just about being aware that it can happen, isn't it? Like hopefully like lots of companies are now like properly thinking about it. So it's like realizing it can happen. So taking all the precautions so it doesn't. And Ilesh, you said something really interesting at the start as well. You know, you said about like accessibility for your project, about not leaving it till the end. And I do think as well, that was really interesting because, yeah, you are right. The more you plan, the less the less problems you can come across basically in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. Like accessibility, I did a talk about this in November. We had a session about this, but like it's another eye opener that adds to mental health and well-being, because you know it's basically one of those things where, you know, maybe it's slightly separate, but it definitely is a key thing where, you know, if you stop one person going to your website because they can't access your website, then that can stop like a big business coming in or someone buying a product or something like that, and leaving that right to the end. We've done it in the past, I wouldn't lie. We've done it in the past where we've left accessibility right to the end, and it can be more costly to kind of, you know, do those kind of bits of work and fix those things again. Whereas if you do it at the start, which is part of best practice, and try and incorporate that in, then it really does make a difference. It's just a natural kind of thing that comes out from them.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Do we have any more questions for Charlotte? No worries if there isn't, but again, you know, there's a chat, there's a tip in there by Stephen as well in the chat. Now we'll move over to Beata. So over to you, please. Thank you.
Hi, hello. Charlotte covered a lot, and I have to add to her presentation, if I may, of course. Wellbeing at work, it's sweeter than Easter Bunny. I just love it. I'm passionate about it. So yeah, to hear how fantastic, the fantastic support you've got from your HR colleagues and team, that's really amazing. Yeah, so I don't have presentation on my screen because I really would like to use the time with all of you really to spend on like meaningful conversation about mental health. Not, of course, I've got my script because if it's about mental health and well-being, I can talk and talk and talk, but I have to look after your well-being as well. You need a break in the evening, you need a rest, and we have to finish on time. So I hope you will agree with me, like we've got different rules in our life, and we are wearing different masks dependent of the role. We become leaders, professionals, specialists, as well as parents, partners, carers, and we have to hold huge responsibilities dependent of the role, as well what is hidden behind the mask. Physical and mental health difficulties, unresolved conflicts, relationship difficulties, financial problems, and the list is that long. How often, as a professional, do you feel open and honest, or you feel able to talk about your mental health difficulties? How often do you feel like if I will talk about it, or if I will share my humanity, I will lose authority? How often we feel like it doesn't matter, it's just bad day, tomorrow will be better. But tomorrow, it's another day, and sometimes it's not better, it could be worse. So Charlotte already mentioned about fantastic, she gave you a lot of information about the well-being at work and what it's about it. And if I can add something about the well-being in general, my few definition, that will be great, of course. So just a little bit about myself. I'm Beata, and I assist professionals really to maintain their well-being, focusing on their mental state, focusing on what is strong and what is wrong, because we can't hide our difficulties. It's, we have to acknowledge them and to deal with them. And really about managing our challenges, which occurs in our personal and professional life on daily basis. I have been working with people for over 25 years, and I have gained extensive experience across health and social care services professionals, working as a staff nurse, mental health social worker, approved mental health professional, and most recently practice development officer and coach. So assisting people to achieve their goals, to look after their well-being, it's my passion. I can't imagine myself doing something else. So my work, it's my passion. If I can go back to the definition of well-being, it's really just one sentence, if that's okay. So it's really well-being, it's the state when we feel happy, healthy, and successful. It's about people and creating conditions for all of us to succeed. It's about quality of our personal and professional life, physical, mental health, and people-friendly environment, including supportive workplace. So as we know, workplace significant role in most people's lives, because it's because of income, of course, we need the money to live on. However, it can increase our self-esteem, provide us with a sense of purpose, achievement, as well the opportunity to socialize and to form long-term relationships in and out of work. Well-being, as Charlotte mentioned before, it's really about physical and mental health as well. So relates to well-being at work, relates to all aspects of working life. It's from quality and safety of physical environment to how workers feel about their work culture, work organization. So as you can see, it's really both mental and physical health. So we've got lots of factors, but I really want to focus on the recent ones, which could really affect or activate poor mental health. So it's a trauma, social isolation, loneliness, long-term stress, domestic violence, working long hours, feeling pressure to be constantly at present. That's one of the, I don't want to say side effects, but the difficulties of working from home constantly when you've got your laptop on your kitchen table or maybe in your living room, and just the fact like it's there, you just feel like you have to do something. So it could really activate anxiety, guilt. So many people feel like, it's really like self-guilt, like, oh, instead just to sit and watch telly, maybe I should do something, or maybe I can catch up with something, even if it's your free time. So that's another reason why we have to be careful. So mental hygiene, it's really, I always wondering why people talk freely about everything in our life, from personal hygiene, sex, relationships, everything. But if it's about mental health, it's like the big elephant in the room. I'm sure you can imagine yourself like sitting in the dentist waiting room. Sometimes people talk about, which teeth, how painful it is. You're going to other specialists, people just share their experience about having surgery or seeing the specialist and their difficulties. But if it's about, can you imagine yourself going to like psychiatrist, psychologist, and sitting in the waiting room? Everyone probably try to hide. It's just like we are not here. So what's different? We are human, professional, but human. Everyone has a mental health. We can't live without our mental health, because without our brain, our thoughts, emotions, we wouldn't exist. I hope you will agree with me. So I just want to talk to you a little bit, or ask you, what do you think about mental hygiene, or how we can really look after ourselves? What mental health hygiene could include? I would, of course, I will start, but I hope I really want to talk to you, not just to tell you, because sometimes it's the same like with well-being. Everyone knows what well-being means, but if you've got conversation, people need to think about it. It's obvious, but it's not. So one of the most important things, it's like to be aware of our mind, because everything starts with our mind. So we've got a top thought, yes. Then after we've got some feelings. You can even right now to think about, maybe remind yourself situation when you felt really happy. And the feelings, you will probably feel like, something nice. The last situation, maybe when you had agreement with your partner, or maybe or with your boss, or maybe something that wasn't really pleasant, how you felt. Definitely different. So we've got thoughts, we've got feelings, and we've got actions and reactions. It's a behavior, because when we don't really control our thoughts and acting on our feelings, it's like how often we just we can explode and shout, scream, because we are under, it's not us. And we just like, oh, I don't know what it was about it because I was so stressed. So that's means we are losing the control of our thoughts and feelings. So that's one way of looking after our mental health hygiene, to be really aware of our thoughts. And we can really control them, because how many times you feel you're sitting at home having lots of negative thoughts because you are stressed, worried about lots of things. You can change your mind. You can do something different. You can focus on different stuff, on different thoughts or on different subject. Next tip, I will say, it's really to review your belief system, because very often we are having something, well, it's not necessarily our ones. It's something like, because we do believe, because that's what teacher told us, or maybe parents, but you're not sure if that's right or not, but you're not arguing with it because it's a obvious truth, but maybe it's not. So it's really good to check if your belief system belongs to you. Positive mental attitude. What's that mean? It's okay to not to be okay. It's okay to have a bad day. Of course, I wouldn't encourage you to have a long period of bad days, because that means you know something wrong, you need help. But it's okay to have a bad day, and it's okay to say, I'm not okay. And my favorite sentence, it's when we ask our colleagues, our partner, anyone, doesn't matter if it's face-to-face conversation or if it's a phone conversation, how are you?
I quite often find you have to ask that twice.
Yes, at least twice.
Because it's like, how are you is just a greeting, right?
Yes,
and when you actually
yes,
want to ask
and
someone, you have
of
to
course, and it's just automatic response, I'm fine. But, you know, I felt so many times angry. I was like, why I have to say I'm fine if I'm not? And what's really stopping me? Or how many times people are afraid to ask, how are you? Because they really don't know, they don't want to know, because they can see, or maybe the body language, you know, the way how you behave. So it's like, I can see you okay. So I'm going to disappear. Better for two of us. Or because we don't know how to handle the conversation about mental health, or maybe any other difficulties like people are dealing with. And it's not about us, it's just the scary thing, what I'm going to say. How I'm going, well, you know, how I can support them, I have no clue. And you know what, the best thing, it's just to acknowledge the problem, to say, I do understand. It's anything what I can help you with. Sometimes just to acknowledge the problem, that's enough. People feel much better, because they will say the tension, it's gone. If you are sitting, I know we are working from home right now, but if you are sitting in the office, busy office, open plans, it's just the fact like someone, it's dealing with relationship problems, financial or any problems. Just the fact like we know, you know, just leave me alone for half a day, it's okay. People don't need to hide behind a mask to say I'm absolutely fine when I'm not. Work-life balance.
Can I ask you something about what you were just saying there? Do you think that's still true, or how do you think that changes in a workplace dynamic where you've got, for example, you know, a line manager and employee? It might be that you're having quite an open dialogue, but how do you think it potentially changes the dynamic for one of those people talking to the other about their own mental health?
I think it depends of really culture, work culture. I think everything starts there. And the way how I work, of course, I will encourage every single leader, manager to really to start the conversation, to be open about it doesn't mean like you have to share every single difficulties, but just acknowledge the fact like you are a human too. That's the most important thing, because we are all human. And yes, our manager could deal with lots of difficulties as well. But of course, if I will show humanity, I will lose authority. Do you agree with it? I don't.
One of the things...
I know it's about balance, of course. Yes, it's not about to upload your stress and everything. but someone needs to start the conversation. And I know the approach like from top down about opening something or encouraging people to be open and honest needs to come from somewhere. And
yeah, I agree. I think the other half of that challenge of that dynamic, I think, is sometimes if you want to open up the conversation with someone else, as a manager, it can then feel you're almost obliged to give advice in a situation where you definitely shouldn't be.
I think sometimes, and I think this is where people go wrong around mental health and well-being, it's like Beata said, sometimes just being honest and hands up of, you know, I feel awkward in this situation, I don't know how to handle it, but just having a cup of tea and a talk, you're probably doing a million times better than by just thinking, I don't know how to go into this one, so I'm just going to not talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to avoid the conversation completely.
Yes, and you don't need to be we don't need to be an expert from every single field, because if you know everything, that means you know nothing. That's you know what I mean. You can say like, I don't know. I can find the information for you, or I can signpost you to someone, or we've got available resources. Or believe me, just to allow people to talk. Just give them 5 minutes. Sometimes really the open conversation, people got the aha moment, and even just to listening themselves, they can say, you know what, I know what to do right now.
Yeah, and actually you can always say, and I'm talking from a workplace HR, you know, there are times where maybe you could say, we're having this conversation, but in 5 minutes we're going to forget this conversation have happened and carry on in a normal environment. And I think sometimes it's thinking in that as well, isn't it? You know, I'm going to pretend I'm a manager for a minute and open up, and then in 5 minutes I'm going to put my manager hat back on and carry on.
And another way of really like to implement the approach, being open and honest about mental health difficulties, it's really to, I don't know how it works in your organization, but really to implement like well-being section in your supervision, during your supervision on any conversation one-to-one, because staff well-being, I think it starts everywhere with everything. So happy staff, happy business, happy customers.
I'm going to agree on Beata because I'm HR. So yeah, I'll give you a big thumbs up for that one.
Yes, I think really the well-being sections should be really like, that's where we should start any conversation with our workers.
Yeah, and I think it's hard, Beata, in this. You know,
no,
I think,
it is. It's everywhere.
It's,
believe me, it's everywhere. Even like working in health and social care, having a specialist next to me and supervising them, it's just like, oh my God, how they, you know, I can't tell her I'm not, you know, I'm just like stressing myself out. But how you can support others, or how you can complete your tasks, or to be able to do everything correctly or to deadline, if you're not managing. We don't want people to fault. We are here to support people. And going back to our like start of the conversation, it's okay to talk about diabetes, it's okay to talk about high blood pressure and other bits, but why it's not okay to talk about depression, anxiety, and other difficulties? It's part of us, part of human being.
It's hard to kind of break someone down though. So Mike was talking about line management, and I can kind of feel like when you're trying to talk to someone, if they are, especially like virtually, it's difficult nowadays, but in person it would be like you can see their body language.
Yes, you can.
You can kind of pick things up. Whereas virtually, it depends. Sometimes people have bad connections and they've got the camera switched off. So that's already like so hard to kind of like figure out what's going on.
You can't really rate what's going on.
Yeah.
Yes, but of course you know it's good when you can have someone who is like independent, could be between workers, employees, and the HR, of course, like a messenger. So really to allow people to have like independent hub, if I can say that, like when they can really openly talk about their difficulties, and the person will be able to go to talk like to Charlotte or other people about that's how the situation looks like, and to think about, okay, what we can do to improve the situation.
Yeah,
because
and
I know sometimes it's difficult, of course, to face to our managers to say, oh no.
yeah, and I think Ilesh, it's about empowering you as well to have, it's just confidence to say, let's put your camera on, you know, let's have a cup of tea and your camera on. And I know it feels really awkward for people, and I'm probably talking confidently because I know in HR and BT, when you do it, don't you, it comes as second nature to you. And I understand for people it doesn't, but I think it is about, as a company, looking at, we are remote working now, so even the style in which we approach those conversations, we have to do it via Zoom or Teams. And it's about just being open and saying, turn your camera on and have a 5 minute, and we are going to talk about this, but then we'll come off the Zoom Teams and leave it there.
And you can explain that, right? You can give the rationale honestly of like, put your camera on because it's going to make us connect better in a conversation.
Yes, it's better connection, and you've got better interaction with people.
Ironically, you might get a worse connection, but you'll get a better connection.
I know what you mean. Yes, and of course, you know, the great point is really to encourage your HR colleagues and to focus on staff well-being. You know, maybe some surveys or just discussion what would help to improve your well-being, because we are all different, and what it's good for me, it's not good for you. So it's, of course, to think about what would help the team. Or sometimes we have to think about the individuals as well. What can we do to support them? So going back to the mental health hygiene, you already touched on it about having the camera on, not off. So my point, it's really like the external appearance as well. Working from home, I know it's difficult, especially like if you don't have a place when you can feel confident, you can talk freely, you've got children just jumping on your back, or maybe you are sitting at the kitchen table with dinner in front of the camera, but it helps a lot when you've got daily routine. I'm sure you wouldn't go in the pajama trousers to work, to the office. So while you are sitting in front of the computer in your boxers, I hope not, but it helps a lot as well. It's just to have a routine and to set up, okay, now it's a work time. And at work, at home, we have to put some boundaries between home and work life. I know it's difficult when we've got homeschooling, we've got like poorly people, or we have to look after other people as well. But for our own mental health, to have some boundaries with ourselves, routine, and to say that's work. Now, I know sometimes I'm just laughing like, should I wear heels from my other bedroom to this room to feel better? But I'm still got my slippers. But I'm just like, no, I'm not going to wear like home clothes. Enough, it's enough. Yes, as a woman, I'm going to put my makeup on to feel better. And I'm going to switch the camera on to feel like I've got connection with people. Physical activities, we already mentioned, it doesn't mean like we have to become a gym champions. Even the gym, it's closed right now, but meaningful walk. Yeah, I'm living in this area, my area, like 10 years, and I just discovered places like, I was like, oh my goodness, it's just behind the corner, which I wasn't really aware of. And it's just beautiful. I was like, gosh, that's not good. But again, routine or being strong with ourselves. How many times I've got like promises, Every lunch break, I'm out. Out to the kitchen, maybe to start dinner, to preparing dinner, or maybe washing in the meantime. No. The dust and the washing will still exist later. Don't worry. Just go for a walk and enjoy if you can. And you're not a sugar, so don't worry. You won't dissolve even with a tiny rain. Take your umbrella with you. Ongoing learning. It's another one. It doesn't mean like we have to, we need a new qualification or diplomas or anything. Just something new. Maybe to cook something different than usual. Maybe to read a different book. Maybe to choose online courses. I know we had enough of computers sometimes, but just to do something different, just to learn something different. Just to focus on something completely new. It's good. Support networks, again, internal and external. It's good when we've got sessions with our colleagues, like coffee and chat sessions, or maybe Fizzy Friday to finish work in the evening and just to have a chat, just to make sure we can really park the work and to say it's weekend now. We can forget about it. And don't forget to take the laptop off from somewhere, just hide somewhere. Make sure you can't see it until Monday morning. That's very important. And of course,
yeah, we have something like a MMT, which it means the laptop stays there, unfortunately, but it's more of a gathering for the employees to kind of switch off. So there's something called a social hermit, which is just literally, you know, bring your own drinks, doesn't matter what it is, and you just have a chat. And then there's a studious hermit, which is more the technical side, or actually not technical, actually it's a discussion about a topic. So almost similar to what we're doing right now, really, where people contribute and someone chooses a topic beforehand. And I think that's really, even though I can't join too many times because of childcare and stuff, but I think it's a really good initiative that MMT have actually put in. And
it's really good. Or even having, you know, external support, maybe to call your friends. I know the relationship probably with friends, it's not the same as before, but it's still okay to contact them and to have a chat. Environment and our clutter. Have you got enough space around yourself, and where the clutter is coming from? I would say just don't forget the external world. It's really the mirror of our internal life. So what is in our head, the chaos, you can see around you as well. So going back, thoughts, feelings, behavior. Sometimes we have to clear the house, and this house as well.
Really aware of how much stuff there is behind me right now.
I know, how often we feel overwhelmed.
We can't see it, Mike.
Where's the blur background?
Yes, but seriously, I know we can laugh, and that's good. We can really put the humor in, but it's very important because you can't really add and add and add, because one day or one moment you can recognize like there is no space for anything else. And everything what it's there, it's so negative, it's overwhelming you, you're feeling low, depressed, and you don't know what to do. Yeah, so I will say don't confuse having career with having a life, because that's very important. We know we need work, we have to work, we need income. I wouldn't say money doesn't matter, of course. We need to, we need a roof above our heads, and we need food. So it is important, but your life and health, it's more important than that, because everything, like health, it's health, sometimes health, it's not everything, but everything without health become nothing. So you have to start with your health and your well-being. That's the start with everything. Have you got any questions?
I think it was really useful, actually, because wasn't expecting a kind of a talk as such, but it kind of opened up a bit more because it allowed people to kind of express their opinions and views, which we've not actually had on the MMT Tech Meetup as much, which is I'm really happy that you joined and presented really. But yeah, there's lots to kind of talk about. There's lots of things to say. Like I was like looking at Charlotte's presentation and that image of the man with the child on his lap and the other son or child knocking the car. That's exactly me. And that's probably why sometimes I have to have the camera switched off, because I'm in the kitchen and there are things way worse than you've got in your background, Mike. Like it's crazy. So but yeah, no, I think it's a really good sort of
and really, to have a like meaningful conversation, maybe once a week, fortnightly, now and then, just to allow people to talk about the mental health, just to start the conversation. Like, okay, it was like difficult week. I know you already mentioned about the tasks deadline, and I was like, oh my goodness, okay. And yes, you're working from home. It's a homeschooling and lots of difficulties. And mental health, it's important, and we have to break the stigma, because I still believe like the stigma is there, and everyone talks like, oh no, we can freely talk about it. I was like, really? Just start with the how are you?
And then ask again.
Exactly. Then ask again. Or if they will say, fine, just ask for clarification. What's that mean? Yeah, and just having time for ourselves, just to ask, having the time to ask ourselves, like, what's critical in our lives right now and needs to be resolved. Because so many times people feel like overwhelmed with everything. That's what already Charlotte mentioned about, because yeah, well-being, it's really, I like the well-being wheel. It's like covers every single aspect of our life. It's physical, mental, relationships, it's workplace, finances, and sometimes improvement in one of this area, it's having fantastic, really, you can see the improvement in your whole life. You have to really find the most critical one and ask yourself what it's really critical needs to be resolved now, and what's going to happen if it wouldn't be resolved. Ask yourself about the cost, what's going to happen, and make decision. Thank you. It was a pleasure to be your guest. And I really want to wish you all the best. And please look after your mental health and break the stigma everywhere where you can.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone else that's joined. Do you have any questions for Beata? Or no. Okay, that's great. So
can I just ask one question?
Sure, yes,
Beata? It was mentioned just earlier that difficulties in keeping contact with your friends. What sort of ideas or things could I do to try and encourage a friend to join, for example, a call like this when they don't really have any, don't seem to have any enthusiasm to do so, but it's a friend that it's quite a close friend, and we used to meet up face to face, go to the pub, things like that. But I've not seen this person for a long time now.
Okay, one reason why you went to, okay, so why you went to so what was the reason of meeting in the pub? Having a beer?
Having a beer and just relaxing, and we can talk about nonsense together. And
how about creating a virtual pub Friday night? Or how about to have a glass of beer? That will be our pub meeting. Or do you know his passion? Do you know his hobby? What's very important? Any subject which would interest him?
I don't think that's the problem. I think I've sort of suggested something like this, but there seems to be a reluctance to join, you know, for him to say, yes, that's a good idea, I'll join that.
Any difficulties in his life? Have you got
Where do we start?
He probably doesn't know because he's not been to the pub.
Maybe with the question, what's you know, what's going on? Anything which I can help you with? And don't be scared of asking the question, because you don't need to be an expert and you don't need to resolve other people's problems. It's just to allow them, to support them, to be open and honest, and to say, you know what, okay, maybe I don't know how, but I can find people or the services for you, or just to navigate, to collect information, or to signpost, or really to check what is available to support your friends. It's just to start the conversation, because we are so scared to ask people what's wrong. So don't forget to ask what's strong and what's wrong.
Okay, thank you.
Because for focusing on our strengths or people's strengths, that's the best way really to say, look, you still got something which you can use, you can focus on, and that's your power. And of course, in our lives, we've got something wrong. But let's talk about it. Let's find a way how this could be sorted, or who can assist you, or how I can support you. Just to start the conversation without being scared.
And Stephen, can I jump in there just for my nosy self? So is it a male friend?
Yes, it is a male friend.
And do you, and you don't have to share this, I'm just asking for your opinion, and sorry, in a wide open group here, but do you think here there is that stigma of the difficulty because you're male and he's male of trying to approach the subject, or do you think that doesn't come into it? I'm just being nosy. Sure.
No, I think that's true. Yeah, that is generally true. I just find at the moment I'm having trouble with this person even acknowledging my text.
Okay.
I don't know. He seems to somehow go off the radar for a long period of time. Then all of a sudden, out of the blue, I'll get a text from him, and I'll reply back, and 2 or 3 times in the conversation, and then it just drops off again. And the other day I said, oh, what do you, I sent a message, just, I mean, maybe I should just pick up the phone and phone, you know, but I sent a message to say, how would you feel? Would you like to do a Zoom call? We could have a couple of beers and, you know, we can just talk a lot of nonsense for a few hours. But I haven't actually had a response to that. And I don't know whether, I find it very strange that someone will not, you send someone a text message like that and you don't hear anything back.
Have you got someone like you could check on him to make sure he's okay?
No, I don't think so. No, I mean, he doesn't live that far away, but obviously due to the current lockdown situation, it's not possible to go and call on him.
So how about changing, instead texting, calling him?
Yeah, I think that's probably a better idea. Yeah.
And sometimes if you've got any worries, just to share your worries, it could encourage him to be honest about himself as well.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. Like, there's to me, there's no harm in being able to say to him, "I'm worried about you," even if that's over a text. It might at least trigger a response back. And if nothing else, he knows you're worried about him. Then.
Nothing to lose.
And once lockdown's over, just turn up at his door.
Thank you.
Good luck, Stephen.
Okay, any more questions? Guess not. So just want to thank everyone for attending, and thank you for the presenters as well. And have a great evening and look out for the next MMT Tech Meetup. I'll try and share the recording at some point next week as well. So look out for that.
And I'm available on LinkedIn as well. So please connect, and I'm more than happy to stay in touch.
Great.
Thank you. All the
Thank you.
best.
Good night. Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.